Hey, welcome back to Adventure World in Godot. So in this video we're going to wrap up the jetpack. So what we're going to do is move our player and our jetpack pickup out of this kind of cave, or out of the, yeah, anyways, you get the point. That way we can test it by flying out of this, hopefully wrap this whole thing up by flying our jetpack out of the cave in a blaze of glory. So let's get right to it. In this video we're going to need two things, one thing. We're going to need a audio file. So I already pre-downloaded this, and I've got this free sound that I got, sound I got from Freesound, and we will just drag that right in here. Let's go ahead and just right-click, show in file folder, and sounds, and dump it in there. So I downloaded this from freesound.org. And it's a really cool site. It's got lots of free sounds on there. I didn't think I could make a jetpack sound on my own that didn't sound too silly, but if you want to, that would be a super fun activity to do. But we've got our sound in here. Let's go ahead and apply it to our jetpack. So I'm going to add a audio node, and either audio stream or audio stream 2D, both would work. And here I'm going to rename it Jetpack Audio, and it doesn't matter where it's at, but let's drag it up and put it with the other jetpack item so that they're together. And then down here we need a stream, so we're going to go to our sound folder and we'll drag this in. But I need to adjust something, because if I hit play, I don't know if you can hear this or not, but it'll play and then it stops, and that's because we need to set that to loop. So if I come up here into the import section and I turn on looping and then re-import, then it'll adjust that sound file so that when I play, it just loops over and over. And that's what we want. Also, it's a little loud, so I'm going to lower it down by some decibels. Just kind of play with it until you get it to where it sounds like you like, and it's balanced with the other sounds in your game. And then let's see, we need to play it. So we're going to go into our script, and I could, down here, I could just play the sound here directly, right? There's a couple problems with this. The first problem is, if I do this, it will make a really funny sound because I'm playing the sound over and over and over. Every time this loop comes through, it's going to play the sound over and over, and so that's why it makes that kind of jittering sound at the beginning. So what I can do is check to see if it's already playing. Playing equals true. Oh, false. So if it's not playing, then go ahead and play it. So that should fix the jittering. Oh, it's complaining about something. Expected end of statement after expression. I thought I could do one-liners like that. Oh, I see it. Yeah, I forgot my if statement. If that. Yeah, so you can do one-lining if statements. So if you have, if you're only going to do one thing after an if statement, you can put it all in one line like this. That helps save some space. I don't know if I've shown that before. So there I fixed my sound, but you notice it keeps playing even once I stop using the jetpack. So how would I do that? I could put an if statement right here, or an else statement I should say, and then stop it. But the problem with that is all these other conditions up here are going to fire, or not going to even get to that else statement. So my sound would continue, for instance, if I dropped into water up here, then this would go and this else would never happen, which is where that else would be to stop the sound. So I need to break the stop, I need to put the stop playing outside of all this other stuff. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to track it with a Boolean property. So way up here at the top, I'm going to add another property called, oops, I just deleted something on accident. I'm going to create another property called Jetpack On, and I'm going to just default it to off. And then here at the beginning of my actor behavior, I'm just going to assume that the jetpack is off. Okay, so we're gonna default it to off, and then I don't know why it's complaining that. Oh, I don't know what's going on with the. I'm deleting stuff off from the previous line, and then down here, instead of this, well, that's actually fine there. Jetpack on equals true. So whenever you push the jetpack button, then we'll turn the jetpack on. Okay, so by default it's off, but if you push the button, then it turns it on. And then down here way at the bottom, it needs to be after this, so that's why we're not just doing it up here. It has to be after this, but it needs to be in line, and this is the tricky part. It needs to be in line. Make sure you follow this line all the way up with this actor behavior, this first line here. Okay, so I know that's tricky, but that's it. This indentation is very important, and so it needs to go right here. And so I'm going to say if jetpack on equals false, so the jetpack is not on, and jetpack audio dot playing equals true. So if it's playing and the jetpack is off, then let's turn off the audio. Stop. There we go. Alright, so let's test this out and see what happens. Pick that up. Oh, perfect. We get audio when we're using the jetpack, and no audio when it's not. So that's exactly what we wanted. So that's great. We'll scoot that down just a little bit to separate it, and I think this is good. So we could even add a comment here. Turn jetpack off when it's not running. Turn jetpack audio off. Alright. And then, let's see. Alright, so we've got the sound. Perfect. Let's go ahead and start with our particle system. So, thankfully, I had already had a art in here. I have a folder for FX. So we've got lots of like clouds and smokes and fires and stuff in here, so I thought I would test with some of these first and see how it looked. And this one right here looks pretty good. I think any of these would work, honestly. But this one looks particularly good. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a particle system. So to do that, we'll say add child node, and we'll say particles 2D. Okay, let's drag that up with the other jetpack stuff. And it is kind of important that it's before the player, because you wouldn't want the flames from the jetpack being on top of the player. That would look weird. It kind of needs to come from behind the player. So we'll rename this to Jetpack Particles 2D is fine. And you notice it's got a warning there, and it says material to process is not assigned. Now you may come down here and say, let's see, texture, where is it? Oh, material. You may say, oh, well, it's missing this material. This isn't the material that they're talking about. They're looking for this process material right here. So if you drop this down, you have two options. You can do a shader material, which this brings up a code. Well, we can just start one and see. So it would create one of these guys, and this, you're like, whoa, what's this? This is the ability to type in, it's another language, it's called a shader language, and you can program some code here. This is not what we want at all. This is not going to get us where we want. Probably as possible, but you'd have to be pretty clever, and would take us quite a while to get there. What we're looking for is this guy. This is our particles material, and this is what Godot has to help you build particles automatically. And so they've pre-coded all these different effects into the particle system. So let's look at, let's go back for a second. There's a couple more things we need to set up here. We need to set up, the biggest thing we need to set up is the texture. Alright, so let's drag this one onto our texture property there. And we've got some smoke, but it's very, very large. So we need to scale that down. We could scale it here. So we could go 0.1, 0.1. That would scale that there. However, I think that's going to cause some other changes that we're maybe not as happy about. So let's leave that alone, and we'll go into our process material and we'll use the scale here. Because the other one would scale not only that, but also the particle's movement. So here, let's go to 0.1. So that's pretty good. Now it's hard to see, so let's scoot this over. We'll zoom in a little bit, and we'll also move over and place that. There we go, we can actually see it right there. We'll just leave it right here where it's very visible for right now. Let's make this a little bit bigger, so like 0.3 maybe. And matter of fact, if you think about a jetpack, it's got this cone here at the bottom, and then as the smoke comes out, it gets larger. So what we want to do is use this scale curve here. We'll say new scale curve texture. Let's actually set this back to 1. And then we'll use the scale curve texture right here, okay? And what this does is it creates this image that allows us to, and you've got a min and max value. So this will be between 0 scale and scale of 1. So you'd need to adjust this to like 2 if you wanted to be able to make it larger than just the full size. And then here we've got this cool curve editor where we can adjust how big and small things start. So in this case we're going to go from 0 all the way up to 1, but we probably just want to go to like 0.3. So see that there? Now we've got this the smoke or flames coming out at a point and then getting larger and larger. So this is pretty nice. I'm pretty tickled with the ability to do this. I think you can even add points in here, and you could make, you know, funny shapes, like it gets bigger and then it gets smaller again. It's pretty neat. But in our case, I think linear is appropriate there, or whatever this curve is. Okay, so we've got that. Now, another important thing is color. So flames generally come out a like red color, and then or a yellow color, and then they change color and kind of diffuse into a white or something as they come out. So let's go ahead and look at, where is it? Here we go, color. So I can set a color. I could just set it to red, but that's pretty uninteresting. Like we said, having that gradient is, or shift in color is important. So here's a color ramp, and it's kind of the similar thing. We need to create a gradient and click it, and then we've got, so this seems pretty complicated. We're really drilling in here. So at the top level we've got this color ramp, and then we've got a gradient texture, and we had to create a gradient, and then inside here we've got offsets and then colors. We don't need to mess with this. You can change how many color changes we do, but we want to leave it at 2. And you can already see the default goes from black to white. You can already see that effect is pretty positive. And so here we've got our 2 colors, and we can click on these and do a color picker to pick them. So let's grab a nice red color to start. We can make it even a deeper red like that if we wanted to. And then here, let's pick a yellow color. We can make it a little orange, but it'll shift through the oranges on its own. Alright, so that looks pretty good. We could lighten it up like that, make it kind of stream out into a cloud kind of color. And then also, as clouds dissipate, you can see through them more. So let's go ahead and change this alpha down like that. And then that plays even better into a white color. So there, just play around with values and get things to where you like them. Alright, so we're looking pretty good. The only thing I have a complaint about now is it sort of feels very uniform. Now, it won't matter too much when the player's moving around and running around. These things will move around a little bit more naturally. But let's go ahead and see what we can do about that. So there's a couple things up here there's the emission shape. So as you can tell, we're on point right now, so all the particles are starting at that exact point. You can change this to something like a sphere, and then it's going to have a radius. Now you can tell they're kind of spawning within this like sphere. So if I went to like 10, now they're starting within this bigger sphere. But I think the point is kind of, there's also, you know, boxes and directed points. Directed point might, oh, okay. Yeah, I've not played with this one. I think the point is actually fine, but I just wanted to show that off. Not messed with trail. The flags let you lock it, I think, to specific directions. The spread here, I think would let us adjust some stuff. Yeah, you just gotta kind of play with some things. Now, the reason it's moving is because we've got gravity on, and our initial velocity is actually not there. So if we get rid of our gravity, so that's what's pulling it down. Now if you think about a jetpack, it doesn't, the smoke doesn't fall because of gravity. It falls or comes out of the jetpack because it's being pushed out. So I think it's better to adjust this to be a thrust. And now we can see the spread, this 45-degree spread here taking effect. Now for some reason it goes off to the side, and I think that's because our you know, this is the x direction, and I couldn't figure out how to change the I know there's an initial well, anyways, I couldn't figure out how to change it except to rotate the particle system node like this. So we can rotate it 90 degrees on the transform. That'll make them come down. So let's drill back into our process material here, and so I kind of want to tighten this up. So 45 seems kind of wide to be spraying them out, so let's go down to 20, see how that looks. So yeah, that's better. See how it's a little bit tighter. Another thing is jetpacks, this is kind of this is more like a small campfire, right, of flames. We want more flames. So how do we do that? Well, this emitting amount up here is how many particles exist at once. So if you count it up really fast, it should be 8. So let's change that to like 30. Whoa. Yeah, that looks pretty good, right? And I kind of want to tighten this up a little bit more too. So let's go into our process material again, and instead of that 20, let's go down to 10. So that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty tickled with that. Now our flames do go down pretty far. Yeah, whoop. I'm still on rotate. Our flames still go down pretty far, so let's say that's what it looks like. And so we can adjust that by coming up here and looking at this time. So this is the lifetime, so how long these particles live. And if we change that to, say, 0.5, they should live about half as long. So that looks pretty good. It looks a little bit poofy there, so we could lower this down now that we're not doing quite as many, or quite as long a lifetime. Having a few less seems like it's okay. Alright. And so there's speed scale, explosiveness. I think the explosiveness kind of bunches them together and they kind of burst out all at once, and then there's a pause and then they burst out some more. But we kind of want this uniform spray to come out. So I don't think we need to mess with too much more there. There is something else that we'll need to adjust, but I want you to see it first. So let's go ahead and fly around with this. So notice something. The smoke is not on its own, it's attached to my player, and it seems very unnatural. So the way we fix that is down here under drawing, there's this local chords. What that means is the flames are local to this player, right? But when I disable this, they become global, so they have their own position. So let's try that again. So that's what I wanted. See how they trail around behind the player now? So that acts a lot more like a real jetpack. So the next thing I need to do is make these hide and show when the jetpack does, or when the jetpack is in use. Another thing is I kind of want them to hide and show when the jetpack itself is disabled. So a quick way to do that is just to make them a child of that. So when this gets hidden, so will the particles. But this will still work as soon as I pick up. So here I won't have it, but as soon as I pick up the jetpack, now I've got the particle systems. You can already see it's getting exciting, right? So let's they're always on. So we need to disable them when we're not flying. Well, we just happened to create a variable for when the jetpack was on and off. So we can reuse this same stuff that we just did to enable and disable our jetpack particles. So here, let's say jetpack sprite slash jetpack particles dot show. Okay, and then down here we'll do the same, but we'll do hide. And now let's try that, see what happens. So no particles as soon as I pick that up. So the problem here is they're on and they look great when I'm flying. They're hard to see there because they're not coming out fast enough. But as soon as I release that button, they disappear. That is not ideal. And so what I really want is I want them to show all the time when the jetpack's on, but I want them to emit only when I'm using this. So here I can say emitting equals true, and down here instead of hiding I can say emitting equals false. Alright, let's try this. So pick that up, and now that looks much better. Let's bump our number back up, because when you start moving around, this number looks a little bit more puny. Here where you're sitting still it looks great, but when you're actually thrusting around it kind of peters out. So there we go. For some reason it feels like it's the particles are starting out below me too much. We could adjust this by moving this up into the jetpack a little bit. That might help a little bit. That makes our line look a little funny when it comes out there. Another thing we could do is we're starting at 0 with our emission. Right here, and then the scale curve, we're starting at 0. That's probably not what we want. We probably want to start there and then get a little bit bigger. Alright, then we'll move it back down to where it should be. Let's try this. And particles are a lot of just that looks much better. They're a little red, so I think we should make that curve change a little bit. That's what I was going to say is particles are a lot of experimentation and just kind of adjusting and playing with it until it feels and looks like you like. So let's go to our color ramp and go into our gradient, colors. Oh, no, you know what? This is our two colors, but what we didn't change, oops, is this. So here I can adjust when those things happen. So let's see. Yeah, I was looking for a curve editor and I don't see one. Oh, oh, oh. So yeah, I want this to be like that. I'm just playing around with these values to see if I can get it to... Oh, here we go. So there it's red a little bit shorter and transitions a little faster. Okay, let's try that. Another thing is maybe maybe we picked a little bit too red of a color. Oh. So let's pick a little bit less of a red. So we'll go a little bit more into the orange here, and we'll bring that intensity down a little bit. Maybe a little bit more red. There we go. Let's try that. Some things look good when they're just sitting there, but then when you're... oh, that looks so much better. A little bit less intense. Now, one other thing is, you know, our jetpack has 2 thrusters, but we're only shooting out one of these. So that's a simple fix. All we got to do is Shift D to duplicate, and then move it over a little bit to where that other one would be. Okay? And now I've got 2 here, and so I need to adjust my script to start and stop both of them. So I'll just copy this, paste it, copy this, paste it, and then I'll change this to be 2 and 2, because that's what that is. And now when I pick up my jetpack, I get the dual thruster streams of particles behind it. I have the sound effect, and it's all looking really good. So let's jump out of here in a blaze of glory. I do need to let this charge up a little bit, and then we will burst out of here and fly. Awesome. Now, one of the things I noticed is now you can actually fly out of bounds out of the castle. So we'll have to look at that. Another thing is, I just realized, is our smoke doesn't really last a long time. We could adjust that. And the problem is now that we've got 2 of these, we have to adjust them both. So we changed our lifetime to 0.5, but what if we changed it the other way? What if we went to 2 on that? Oh, and another thing I forgot. Let's see, let's go into our process here. There's also a radial or angular velocity. So we could change this to like 20, and that should help the particles spin, and then we could add some randomness to it, so like 0.3 maybe, and hopefully that'll help our particles look a little bit more random. See how they kind of hang out for a little bit? I'm not sure if our randomness is enough, or excuse me, our radial velocity is enough. Let's change that to 100. Yeah, see how they're spinning now? And they last for a little bit longer. I like that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think our jetpack is looking fantastic. You know, we could even maybe do with a few more particles. Why not, right? Particles are supposed to be cheap. Let's go up to 90. Go absolutely bananas. Yeah, that still looks really good. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of fun playing with this. The one thing that I thought maybe would be worth separating the buttons out is because if you notice, when I try and jump, I'm using up some of my fuel as soon as I jump because we're using the same button, and I couldn't really think of a way around that other than to maybe put a timer on it so that if you jump, and then it would be a second before it would start using fuel, or you'd have to release the button and then it would activate the ability to do the... That's a good idea. Let's do that. I think that's worth doing. So what we want to do is have a button that says, let's call it jump released in air. Okay, so we're only going to activate our jetpack. So if he has a jetpack and jetpack, oh no wait, jump released in air, and he's pushing the jump button, and your fuel is greater than 0. So this is getting crazy here. But the way I can do this is if you're in the air, and then we have if input dot is action just released UI accept, then we want to set that jump released in air equals true, and then we need to set that back to false. Wait, yeah, we need to set that back to false when he touches the ground. So here we go. So jump released in air equals false. Okay, so as soon as he touches the ground, we're going to reset that back. So now this should work. I know that was kind of complicated and starts to get a little bit hairy. Something's fishy. So I broke some stuff, but this part works. Matter of fact, everything works once I activate it, but for some reason that first round does not work. So as soon as, oh, you know what? As soon as I pick up these particles, these are set to emit by default, so I would need to turn these off. Now this is kind of like the similar problem of the pick and the jetpack showing. I'd rather turn this off in code so that I can see it when I'm looking here at my player. So let's go back here, scroll all the way to the top, and here in I should have a ready function somewhere here. I'm scrolled over, that's why I don't see it. So here's my jetpack stuff. Let's go ahead and do jetpack particles dot emitting equals false, and we'll do the same thing for the second one. Alright, hopefully that fixes it. So pick that up. I don't have them emitting, and I can jump like normal without using any of my jetpack fuel, which is great. Maybe I should have made it to where you regen jetpack in the air, but I didn't want you being able to do some sort of infinite flight. So I can continue to fly by just tapping the space bar, but I'm not using up my fuel just doing normal jumps like this, and I can jump like that and then activate my jetpack at the top and get a really good effect. Yeah, that feels fantastic and has really kind of perfected or polished that up quite a bit. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. We're going to start working on, I think we're going to add one last key, which will be very, very similar to the other boss key, and we'll put it up on the roof here. And another thing I noticed is the game is kind of not self-explanatory, so we may add some signs that'll help give you some directions of where you need to go and how you need to play. Anyways, then we'll add a gate here, and we'll put a key up on top of the building, so you can jump up here like this. Oh, I missed it. So you'll be able to jump up on top of the castle, or into the clouds or something, and pick up a key, and run over here, unlock it, and then we'll have the big boss battle before you pick up the treasure. So we're getting close, and I've enjoyed the ride, so we'll see you next time.